Hey guys.
Hello.
This is S&M and the podcast. I bet you think this podcast is about you. And if you think it's about you, it's because you are a narcissist or a sociopath or a borderline or one of the other antisocial personality disorders. We are not mental health experts. Reminder, we are just two regular women who have had relationships with individuals who we believe are on the cluster B personality have cluster B personality disorders, or who may have cluster B personality disorders. We don't diagnose anyone because we're not qualified to do so. Only live through the school of hard knocks. So, our topic today is about listening to our friends and the women in our lives who give us feedback about these toxic relationships that we are in or have been in. And it sort of harkened back to the scene from one of my favorite movies, Thelma and Louise, where Thelma's basically assaulted in a parking lot by some gross guy, and Louise comes out and pulls a gun on him, and eventually, after making some sweet lines that are very memorable, shoots him in the face, and then simply says, "Get in the car." So welcome to episode 5, Get in the Car. And we are so excited because we have two firsts here. This is our first episode with guests. We have, sticking with our motto or our theme, E and K. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, friends.
I know. I hope you guys got Cheetos in the green room. Did you get Cheetos in the green room?
No.
That's not nice.
I'm already living the podcast life wrong.
They're leaving.
It's also our first episode with alcohol involved. So
yeah, cheers.
You can't
That's
hang out.
actually the reason I showed up.
It's good. Keep drinking then,
Yeah,
girl.
I do some of my best work with Chardonnay in my hand, so.
Well,
come to the right place.
You've got some, so let's go. And so they're here just to provide their perspective as our friends. E and K have been friends of ours for a very, very long time. E and I go back almost 20 years, which is crazy. But yeah, I guess we're old. So
I'm only 25.
I know, I'm in kindergarten. And, they've had some very interesting perspectives on the men that we've dated or men that other friends of ours have dated. And so I think it'd be very useful, I think it'd be useful to talk about why we don't listen to our friends and maybe why we should in the future do a better job of listening to our girlfriends. So we're going to start with this story because this just happened. And I was going to let Em tell this, but I was like, no, this is the girlfriend story. So I'm going to tell it from my perspective as Em's friend. So she recently went on a date.
I don't know if I'd call it a date.
Okay.
It was an arrangement.
It was arranged
And I had
marriage.
2 things that I wanted to accomplish when I was there.
Sex and tacos.
Yes.
So
That's it. I don't want a conversation. I don't want to know what kind of dog you have. I just am here for 2 things.
Sex and tacos.
Yes.
So Em pulls out her phone on a group text between us and some of our yoga buddies, and essentially live tweets her date, from the moment she's like, "I'm here for sex and tacos," to her running out the door with her shoes in her hands. It was the worst night of my life.
It was more like a sprint. I was definitely sprinting out of there. Oh, God.
We got the text that was like, "This is terrible," and as the night progressed, it was interesting because all of us came back with abort, eject, get out. You're done. This isn't for you. Go. And she was like, "I haven't had the tacos yet," or something. So I was like, "Take your tacos and run. Get them to go." So Em, in fairness, you didn't take the eject, abort advice.
I did not.
You saw that through to the bitter end.
I saw, and bitter it was. Oh my gosh.
So I would like to know as a girl with girlfriends, how are you taking that feedback from us? Because we've all known you forever. And how did you hear it? And what was sort of the input that was going on in your head?
Well, the thing about it is when you have your sex and tacos goggles on. That's all you see. So it's like you have a screen on your phone and the text message doesn't say get the fuck out. It says keep fucking going. It's fucking great. Oh my God. So like I would see the buzz come off and I was just like, oh, just put that over there. And oh my God, there's a taco. And there might be sex eventually. So it's like you kind of just go into like you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it.
Until you wish you had listened.
And yes, until you're running out. And I was literally like, okay, yep, gotta go, bye. And we're not going into a lot of details, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
It was the undate. The best part was the tacos.
What kind of tacos?
Yeah.
So it wasn't Taco Bell. I will say that. It was a marginal step up from that. I thought I was walking into like at least a homemade taco bar. It was kind of like the impression I was going to get. And I don't know, it was like from a taco truck or something like that.
Did you get a doggy bag on your way out?
No, actually, I was like, you can go ahead and keep everything because I brought wine. And I was like, why don't you just go ahead and keep that?
They were broke ass tacos and you left them.
They were. I mean, I honestly thought he was making you tacos. I thought that was the deal, but
that was the deal.
Fuck, and he bought you takeout
That
tacos.
was one of the very
Did he
the
at least
first
put everything in like his own bowls to be like try and fake that he made it or like leave it in the container?
I'm still trying to actively forget the entire night ever happened. So I'm trying to. I can't remember. There
I'm
might have
in
been
EMDR
like a bowl.
therapy for the tacos.
Yeah. He didn't text you to pick up salsa or sour cream on the way over, did he?
I would have just turned around and been like, I can't. You know what? I can't. I cannot do this.
Okay.
So
But that's what happens. Like you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And so, what I've discovered, and this is going to go against popular wisdom because when I Googled this topic, because that's how we do our research, we Google whether you should listen to your friends about people that you date or marry or see. The overwhelming response from like the mental health community is like, maybe your friends aren't going to be that best, that supportive, and you don't always want to listen to your friends. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Because if they're really your friend, if they are a good friend, then what they are hearing from you is your side of the story. They aren't having sex and tacos, right? They are just hearing you talk about the relationship in your most honest moment. And so they're going to hear all of your reservations, all of your concerns, all of those nasty gut feelings that you have that this guy's a fucker and he's lying to you or something. And they're not getting gaslit. They're not getting lied to. They're not getting love bombed. So they're just hearing your little side. And what I think that does is it sort of echoes back to you your own intuition. So you can look at, if it's a good friend, you can look at your girlfriends like a mirror of your own intuition. And we need to do a better job of listening to them. Mm-hmm. So we are all sort of part of kind of the yoga community, like these crunchy granola people, and they're always like they're ridiculous because I love them all. Okay,
Yeah.
Let me just preface it with saying I love those people. However, when you're like, this guy, I really don't know if he really sits right with me, and something's up, and they're like, how do you feel? What do you think? And you're like, girl, you're not my therapist. You need to tell me what you really think, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to be more honest with our friends, telling them, tell me what you really think of this person and how you think of me in this relationship. And if he's a dick, just say he's a dick.
Which can be hard to say.
Yeah.
It can be hard to say.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, ooh, my overstepping, like, it can be hard to say. But you're right. I mean, you should at least and we're going to talk about this, but I know like one of my friends is really good at sort of positioning it as a question. Like, so how does he how do you feel when he does that? Or and then I start to think, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so when it's positioned as a question, I do tend to actually really think about that afterwards.
Well, and I've, ever since I've had, realized all the shit that I've dealt with, I've been better with my girlfriends about saying I don't think this is the person for you. He's not yours. He's not your person. He may not be a monster, but something's not fitting or it's not right there. And why waste time staying with somebody, even if the sex and tacos are good, if he's just not your person. But anyway, I want to get some of the guest input from the toxic relationships. And we're going to go back to my old friend E here. who had some of the best input, I think, that I didn't listen to. I'll be honest. So I was like, sorry, I'm sorry, E.
Yeah. I cried.
Yeah. So, I know. So why don't you share kind of how that experience was for you as my BFF?
Okay. Well, when this whole story started, every time that we would talk about this, I had my reservations, and I started to notice a trend that every story or every encounter between the two of them led with
It's good to be a wine.
I know.
And I'm thinking, okay, but take the sex goggles off, or whatever goggles that you have on for a relationship. What is there? If you're leading with the same thing every time, is that the best part of your relationship? Is that the only part of the relationship?
Pretty much, yeah.
See, I wasn't that far off.
I know.
And I think that I felt like I said that a lot, but then it just got to a point where I didn't want to overstep my bounds. I said my piece, you needed to do what you needed to do. But part of it was frustrating because you're my BFF and you were going through this, and I'm like, what else am I supposed to say? You can only say things so many ways, and person's either going to hear it or not. And if they're in a position and they're ready to hear it, yeah, they're going to process it and take it in. But if they're not, it's just going to go over their head no matter what you say. You could be holding a freaking poster board over your head and they're not going to pay attention.
So what I hear you saying is, when you said if you were looking through sex goggles, you would hate him. That wasn't blunt enough.
Apparently it wasn't.
I know. Guilty. So, So, Kay, I know you have some stories along this vein.
I sure do. I think my biggest thing is, as a friend, when you watch somebody go through that, and I was lucky enough when I had experiences very similar. I had friends who stuck by me, but you do the tough love thing of I'll always listen, I'll always support you. When I don't agree with it, I'm going to say it. And I've had falling outs with friends. 99% of them have all come back, whether it be 6 months, 2 years later, after me just saying hey, I love you. I'll be there for you. But right now, it's really hard for me to listen to a lot of this because I absolutely can't condone it and let you think that it's an okay situation to be in.
Right.
Doesn't matter when you figure it out if it's not your thing. You can call me at 2 a.m. and I'll be there and I'll come pick you up and we'll figure it out. But it's really hard. And I've lost friends. I had one friend who got engaged to said shitty guy who was constantly terrible. She caught him cheating a bunch of times. There was all kinds of mental and physical abuse. Got engaged and asked me to be in the wedding. And I had to look at her and just say, I'm sorry if this ruins our friendship, but me standing up next to you tells you that I'm supporting this and that I think this is okay when that's not at all how I feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that tough love a little bit. And I always tell everyone, I'm like, tell your heart to shut the fuck up because that's not what's going to get you anywhere. Listen to your gut, listen to your brain. And if you can't be honest with your closest friends about the scenarios you're in or what's actually happening. If you're lying to your family friends or your friends about certain scenarios and situations and how they're happening, there's a reason because you don't want to. Oh yeah. You don't want people to find out and you don't want to hear it. And if you're lying about it, you're not only lying to me, you're lying to yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the really crazy part too, is because when you're in those situations and you have this guy who basically has taken control of your life, that's where that triangulation comes in, right? So you're over here like a normal friend saying, this guy sucks, he's abusive and awful, and why are you with him, and stop lying about him, stop trying to protect him. And he's over there saying, she was always jealous of you. She doesn't want you to be happy. Oh, right? Absolutely. And they have their ear, they have the pillow talk every night, not you and her. And it's like...
I've had guys tell my friends, I'm really not comfortable with they'll pick things about me just because they know. And I've had to look at friends and be like, hey, might not be the best idea to put us in a social setting. I was like, especially if alcohol's involved. I was like, because if he says like one crappy thing or like crosses the line or like, you know what I mean? Like is weird in public, like it's going to be hard for me not to be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And try and call you out. And I was like, I don't want to feel like I have to act differently around your significant other when that's never had to be a thing, and I'm not going to damper those things for your crappy relationship. Like we can just hang out without that person. I'm so sorry, but I've definitely had friends like going through things that their husbands, ex-husbands, boyfriends have said like, well, I'm just really not comfortable with that person. And I was like, I can tell you why they're uncomfortable.
I know, right? So what happens though when they come back to the so usually the relationships don't last forever.
No.
When they come back in, are they like, wow, I acknowledge that I was really shitty?
It's a lot of apologizing, which I'm always like, there's no need to apologize. Like everybody's been in that scenario where you think the sun shines out of that person's ass and they are the best.
Oh yeah.
But they're just not. And I didn't see it because I'm not looking at things through rose-colored glasses. Like, and you're my friend, so I want what's best for you. There's no need to apologize that you were being told exactly what you wanted to hear and being treated like you were the only person in the room when you were there, and then the second you're not, it's someone else.
P.S. They have a lot of rooms, and there's one person in every one of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think as a friend, it's it's obviously easier to step back and see that, and to convey that. It's hard because you're like, you can't get inside your friend's head, and what are they thinking? What else has been going on? You know, behind the scenes.
Up shit.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and I've had friends who like totally agree, totally get it, sitting in front of me. You go home, you talk to that person about it, and you come back. And it's like in one ear, out the other, because that person's then reassured you of everything else.
Right.
And that's, I feel like, totally normal when you're in those scenarios.
Yeah. Or your friend can take it in, and then, like you said, their significant other can turn around, oh, she's just completely jealous of you. She wants what we have.
Absolutely.
Right.
That happens so.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you guys think would be like good questions to ask your friend to try to get them to see the light? So you had one. I mean, I remember at one point you asking me, like, how much longer are you going to do this? You want to do this for another year or 2 years or 10 years?
Yeah.
Is this what you're going to do? Is this your person you're just going to be with in a decade? And I'm like, ew, no.
Yeah, because you've always been the person who said, when I'm done, I'm done. I'm like, well, how the hell are you going to be done with this? Like, what's the line? How are you going to walk away? Because
we all learned the answer to that question.
Yes.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yes.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Now we know.
We did, so it has quite the ending. But, because usually the other person is so crazy, they're going to keep coming back. They're going to keep inserting themselves in your life. So it's not going to be the normal breakup, so how are you going to put the end of this chapter? And if you can't figure out that, when you're ready to, then...
My question always was, like, whenever my friends are getting that serious with that guy and then they're talking about marriage and their future, and I looked point blank at my friend who was getting engaged to this guy, and I said, what happens when you guys get married, you have a daughter, and she thinks it's completely okay to be in a relationship that looks exactly like yours with someone who talks to you the exact way that guy talks to you?
Oh, that's a good one.
What are you going to tell your daughter?
Oh, no one ever asked me that one.
What do you say to your kid or your friend or any other woman who you see in that scenario? How do you validate that? And in all honesty, to me, even, like, you can even just ask a friend, what would you say to me if you saw me in the same position? Because to me, too, you also want to know the person that's in your corner wants what you want for them. And that's to be as, like, happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember we had, so we have another yoga friend who's not here today. But she consistently will ask, does he make your life better? Or on balance,
Are
is
you
it
a
worse?
better person? Are you a better person?
If it's not helping you, it's hurting you at that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you just have this, like, you go back and forth, though. Like, I've been on both ends where I've been the girlfriend who's trying to, like, hey, look at the red flags over there. Come, you know, like, come on. And then I've also been the one where people are telling me, like, dude, get the fuck out.
Oh, I know.
And the thing is like,
you're so smart when you're on the other side.
Oh yes.
Yeah. You're brilliant.
You take it in, and then, but then, like, you know, you go back home, and then like you said, like, they'll come back around or they'll say something sweet, and then you're like, well, maybe he's not that bad.
When I was in my scenario, I feel like I didn't even realize that I was in, like, a toxic relationship. It was 4 months after it had ended, and I had a girlfriend, like, we were sitting talking, and she just looked at me and she goes, you realize that was, like, extremely toxic and borderline abusive. And I, like, literally, it was like someone ripped open the shades, and I was like, like, sometimes nobody knows it, and it takes a good long while, and then someone says one thing.
Yep. You know, and I think one thing that I think you mentioned, E, is asking, you know, do you really love him, or is this an addiction? Because sometimes you get addicted to these people and how they make you feel during that love bombing phase, and it totally is. It is totally an addiction. I don't know. Ooh, business idea. We could start a rehab.
I've totally thought about that.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Love rehab. It's going to be awesome.
Well, I think that goes, but yeah. What's the copay on that?
I don't know, but it's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of talking about our feelings.
Oh, God.
And drinking wine, which is totally allowed in this rehab.
Yeah.
But no cell phones, no drunk texting.
Oh my gosh, guys.
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Get off social media.
Oh my gosh.
Stop, like, stalking his account.
You know, and one thing you have to remember too, though, is like, as the friend who's the friend in the relationship is, you never go back to the guy and say, my friend doesn't like you. Like, I know we talked about this briefly before, but that just opens the door for them to marginalize you, right? So if you tell them your friend doesn't like them, they'll do everything they can to keep you away from her. Well, and they won't invite him over. They'll try, like I said, they'll try to triangulate you. They'll just talk shit. And when you start getting marginalized, when they start just keeping you away from all of your relationships with your friends and family, that's when the abuse gets worse.
Yep.
Because there's
like, you don't have anyone to reach out to.
There's nowhere to go. Yep.
Right. Well, yeah, because I think if you're in that situation, you tell them everything because they've brainwashed you that they have to know everything. So of course you're going to say something, you know, I was hanging out with whoever and they said this, well, they're a terrible person now. You're never hanging out with them again. Or what they said, that's just absolute crap. And I think that just kind of leads to it, and it just keeps going down the line. It could be one friend and then all of a sudden you can't hang out with anybody.
So how do we do a better job? How do we do a better job of listening to each other? That's like such an open-ended question. I think sometimes we alienate our own friends, and that's the patriarchy too. Like, we're getting back to that a little bit again. Shocker.
That'll be the last time.
Right, because I think sometimes the system is set up to make women sort of alienate each other. And you know, it's she's jealous of you, or, you know, she just does what she just talks shit because she hasn't been married and she wishes she was married like you know, and I'm the best thing since sliced bread and she just hasn't had a man like me in her life. So she just is hating on you. And it's, and then when they can create that rift and they're like, look, women fight. They're always just so catty, you know?
Exactly.
I think one thing, and you did touch on this a little bit, Kay, is that you cannot hide things from your friends.
You can. It's just like a terrible sign that it's going terrible.
Right? Yeah, I mean, we have to be really careful as just empowered women that we don't hide anything that's happening in our lives from our closest friends. Go ahead.
Absolutely. But I remember also being in those situations, even when my friends are honest, you're so afraid sometimes too to tell your friend in that situation the honest opinion because you don't want to see them start pulling back either.
Right.
Because you're so wrapped up in that toxic relationship. And I've watched that happen to some people and I'm like, wow, so they're distancing because who knows what's actually going on there.
Yep.
And it's like the more you sometimes empower those women or ask them to question, sometimes they get afraid of the answers and almost they'll say, well, you're just so negative. I can't believe you don't want to be happy for me. And I'm like, it's not about, like, if I saw you truly happy and thriving and doing all this stuff, I would be happy for you. But at the end of the day, if you're not seeing that, and when that's your best friend and you know them inside and out and all those things, and you've watched them in plenty of relationships, you can pick out that one that's really going south fast.
Yep. And I actually had this within my family recently. This isn't even me, but I have a family member who is in a fucking terrible marriage. Awful, right? And she recently moved back to Michigan. Yeah, she lived out of state for a while. And I was like, to another, the matriarch of the family. I'm like, hey, why is she back? Why is she moving back with her kid? And she's like, I don't know. Like that whole, I mind my own business. I don't know. And I'm like, is she getting a divorce? Because husband's not coming back with her. Me kind of being hopeful that she's getting a divorce because I hate the guy. And, right? Which, by the way, she actually stopped talking to me because I hate her husband, right?
Which, in all honesty, as much as that stuff frustrates you, I honestly always just feel so bad that you feel so trapped.
Right.
And you're not free to have open relationships and conversations with people who care about you as well.
Exactly.
Because you feel so cornered by that person who's supposed to be your partner and want what's best for you.
Yep.
It's sad when that stuff happens.
And then you feel like you don't have anyone to turn to. So, you have these friends, like the one friends that, so she has me as a family member who's saying, get out, but she's totally marginalized me. I haven't actually talked to her for over a year because she won't talk to me. Now she will. And then the ones that you do talk to, they're so pro-marriage or pro-your marriage that, she moves back and this matriarch says, well, I hope they're not getting a divorce.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, why do you hope that? I'm like, no.
No one's a pariah when they get a divorce.
I was like, don't cry.
Have
I
you
hope
ever
they
heard
are.
someone who got a divorce was like, damn it, I wish I didn't get a divorce.
I wish I would have stayed a little longer.
God.
The only regret I ever hear is I wish I would have left sooner.
Yeah.
But I'm just like,
Right.
you
Or
know
sign
what
the
she's
prenup.
going through. Or prenup.
One of the reasons that I don't say as many things to my girlfriends as I used to is because from what you just said, they just ghost me. They stop talking to me. When I actually tell them how I feel and what I see, they stop talking to me. They don't want to, because they don't want to hear what I have to say. So I stopped really telling them how I felt.
Like I said
it's
earlier,
hard,
I've honestly noticed, like I said, 99% of my friends, and there was 3 girls who've all been in very bad situations, and I had been in one prior, so I was way tougher on them than maybe I should have been. 99% of them have all come back because they know sometimes that even though they cut you out,
They know you're right.
they know you, not even know you're right. They know you'll still be there for them because you're the one person who gave them the tough love. Even when they didn't want to hear it, they will say, fine, you know what? You're the one person that I was kind of honest with and was just as honest with me.
Yep. And I hear you, Em. I do, because I have been cut off too. But at the same time, sometimes I think if you just say something, you say, fuck it, you can just not talk to me, but here's what I think. I think he's terrible for you. You're at least planting the seed. Right. And they'll always have that your voice in the back of their head saying, my best friend thinks you're the devil. You're saved to Satan in her phone. Right? I mean,
Or just always on the conversation with, that's fine, you don't have to talk to me again, but when you need me, you can call me at 2 a.m.
Right.
and I'll show up and get your shit out of this apartment.
Exactly it.
Right.
And
And when you're that
Yes.
one person, when they hit their wits' end, they will call because you're the one person they need to do that. They don't want to call their dad.
No.
They don't want to call their mom. They don't want to call their brother to fight him. They want the one person who will help them get out quickly and let them sleep on the couch and cry their eyes out, and they know you won't judge them about it.
girl, I got called. You know this. I got called to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Because that fucker put her
Same
in the
night.
hospital. And I'm like, holy
You and I were the
shit.
only 2 called that night.
like-
Mine was because I was pregnant, and they were like, I bet you she's not out drinking and she could pick someone up. And I was like, I sure can. I sure can. I could also do a drive-by of that apartment.
I think I actually called you from her phone when
You
she was
did.
in with the doc, and I was like, she called me because I'm lame and I don't have a life. It was like a Sunday night, and I'm laying on my couch, and I was almost not going to answer the phone, but I was like, I recognized the first 3 digits of the hospital's phone number. I was like, why the fuck is the hospital calling?
Right.
It was like divine intervention that I answered that damn call.
You called me, and I was like, so who needs to die? I was like, that's great.
I'm gonna take my pregnant belly and fuck some shit up.
I was like, I got pregnancy rage. It'll go far.
Extra estrogen. I'm gonna cry the whole time, and I'm gonna kick his ass.
Yeah. You called me too.
I did call you. Yeah, because she had cut a lot of us out. I don't think really intentionally. It's just he really like marginalized her, like took up all of her time and energy. And yeah, I was like, oh God.
Well, it was even after
like
you
the
put her
bat
in the
signal.
hospital. I remember she would try and hide the fact that they would still spend time together.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't get me wrong. I'm not happy about it. I was
Yeah.
like, but you don't need to not tell me about it. I was like, because that'll create a bigger rift in our friendship. If you're lying to me about it, you can be honest with me about it, but I'm going to be really honest about what I think
It was
when
hard.
you're doing it.
I think the more abuse there is in a relationship, even especially when it gets physical like that, I think the harder it is to get away. So even though
absolutely.
he like literally tried to kill her, I think it was even harder to get away from situations that we've all been in because they're just so enmeshed with one another. But let me tell you, she fucked his life up. So good for her.
Oh yeah. I still
the end
tell
of the
her,
day.
I'm like, anytime you have a bill, I was like, you should just send it. I was like, just send it that way and see if someone feels bad enough to actually
right.
just pay it.
Oh my God, that was reminiscent. That reminds me of one of the themes that we have on this podcast is how these people never let you go. That fucker still calls her.
Still, if she
Years ago,
if
she's
she
got
posts
a
a picture
family.
of her and I, because he was so mad when we both went to court with her that day.
Oh,
if she
yeah.
posts a picture on Snapchat, he will still send her, fuck that bitch, because he still hates me so much for picking her up and for showing up to court with her,
remember going to
pregnant as
court.
hell,
Yeah.
and he still is like, fuck that bitch. And I'm like, I'm not even the one who's fucked your life up. You're not even the one who fucked my life up. You're just mad that that's how shitty you are. You're just mad that I gave my friend a way out.
Yeah. Yes.
That's how terrible you are.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember you just reminded me of that court hearing. Holy shit. When we were sitting back there, he was like shaking.
Yeah.
That fucker. Good for her. I'm glad she's out. But yeah, he'll still call her. Still gets different numbers and just calls her up.
Well, what was that? If I
Jeez.
was pregnant, yeah, that would have been almost 5 years ago.
Yeah.
This summer.
Still calls her.
Still calls her.
Anyway.
That's crazy.
States away, kids away. What are you doing?
Right? Yeah,
Get
she's got
your shit together.
she's got a baby. Not even a baby. She's a toddler.
Yeah. He has nothing, just the way it should be.
Just the way it should be. Keep on keeping on, man. All right. So, I think in conclusion, when we have those moments, and it's really incumbent on us as the one in the relationship, because our friends do a pretty good job, I think, of intervening. It's just when we're the one inside the relationship, we have to do a better job listening to our friends who are just echoing back to us our biggest fears and our gut feelings. So, we got to be like Thelma. And when she's like, get in the car, Thelma got the fuck in the car.
Yeah. I
Of course,
told you
he
to
was shot in
literally
the
get in the
face,
car.
but that's okay.
I love it.
That was such a good
Get in the
movie.
car.
Remember the one time I told you literally to get in the car?
I feel like
I
everyone
do.
has to have had that reiterated to them.
Yes.
Like, get in the car.
Get in the car.
With
I
the
got in
mom
the car.
eyes.
That night was so funny. Oh my God. That's a whole long story. I got into the M&Ms in the mini bar. I didn't eat them, just barely just left them in my bed. But, Anyway, so listen to your girlfriends, and thanks for joining us. If you want to check us out on Instagram, we are under S&M Podcast. You can leave us a note there. We also have a website at, I don't know, I think it's linked on Instagram because then the website's a little complicated. But hopefully we'll be on Apple soon. So thanks for joining us.